All right. So, I'm not just like I'm not trying to teach any lessons to anybody because I realized I don't have any lessons to teach. I'm just trying to share my thoughts on lessons that I've learned. That's just a quick disclaimer before we get into it. Now, do you ever feel like existence is a weird thing? Like, to me, it has a strange feeling to it. The big why that people kind of love and hate at the same time. You know, is are you born to do something, or do you have an inherent purpose or not? Do we just live to exist, or is there a purpose to our existence? If there is, I mean, how are we supposed to come up with it? I've struggled a lot with this question over the past few years, and I've gotten quite preoccupied about it. I read a lot, like a fair amount on the topic, and it seemed that every time I wanted to quench my thirst for understanding, like I would just find myself in more of a desert. It would Everything I tried to read would never help me out as much as I thought it would. And as I mentioned in my last video, I always envied friends who were religious because it always seemed that they had a deeper meaning to their life, whereas I just was. And this kind of fucked with my mind a lot because I desperately needed to know that I was useful and that I exist for a reason. Otherwise, I just couldn't cope with the fact that the opposite is possible. You know, I wanted to be like in the movies, you know, I wanted to have a destiny. I wanted to be like meant for something, that I was gonna find my calling and just go do it. But yeah, real life is not like that. And I was ready to do anything to if someone gave me a cause, I was ready to do anything. But I didn't, and didn't have a cause or driving force or guidance towards that. No beliefs. And it just made the world feel a bit empty, you know? And that's when I discovered existentialism. Quick disclaimer, I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be knowledgeable in the topic. I've just read a few books, articles, listened to a few podcasts about it. And this video is more about how I'm applying what I've learned into my life. I'm not trying to give a lecture on existentialism. All right, cool. So what is existentialism? The main thesis that Jean-Paul Sartre came up with is that existence precedes meaning. No meaning is inherently bestowed upon us. It's our job to create it. And that stuck with me. I was like, yeah, what? It's my choice? Like, I get to choose? And if I get to choose, what the fuck do I choose? This is now where I veer off into my interpretation, because my search for meaning has been obviously full of some roadblocks, and one of them was that I could motivate myself to do things, but not the thing. I could always find motivation to do multiple different projects. I always have a bunch of stuff going on, but I've always had trouble finding the big purpose. And that's where we're going to start. The thing that I concluded upon is that I don't think people have the strength to bear the weight of their purpose. They don't have that strength. That's why bullshit like astrology exists. And because putting your life choices and responsibilities onto other things that you don't understand is so much easier. And, you know, having a purpose in life is such a high responsibility that I don't think that a singular person can bear that weight for themselves. This is my main point. I'm not talking about like going to college or graduating or getting a job. I'm talking about raw meaning and purpose in life and your calling. That's what I think is too heavy. Let me give you an example. I like to look at the military when I think of highly driven people, because these guys literally throw their lives away for the sake of their country. I mean, I'm not judging, I'm just stating facts here. And what's odd to me is that I always thought that that was awesome. Like, I always wanted to be like that. But, I don't believe in something as much as they do. And I feel like I couldn't be like them because I didn't believe in something like that. And I doubt that soldiers throw themselves on the battlefield for themselves. They do it for something else. The amount of drive you need to perform such actions is, I think, not inherent to human beings. So now that the main point is established, I'd like to segue into a second topic, which is how I've been acting on it, at least recently, how I've been acting on it. Let me start with an example. If you know David Goggins, you know that he's arguably one of the most, badass dudes alive. He's a Navy SEAL, he's an author, he's a fucking athlete, triathlete, he runs ultra marathons, he goes on podcasts. Guy's a fucking beast, And you would think that this guy is very, very self-driven, because he always says, I don't do shit for other people, I do shit for me, and that's impressive. I mean, the dude's a legend, but in one of his interviews, or in multiple interviews, he says that what drives him is actually the idea of that when he dies, if there is a heaven, and if there is a God, he doesn't want to disappoint God. He's afraid of disappointing God. And that comes to my point, which is he's not doing it for himself. He is relaying that responsibility onto a non-human being, a non-human entity. And I absolutely love this. It's the perfect synthesis of the individualistic search for meaning that existentialism kind of showed me. And on the other hand, there is this commitment to a higher meaning that I always envied and that I could never find by myself. And that allows you to put your responsibilities into the hands of something else. David Goggins, in this case, puts responsibility into the hands of God. But what's different in this case is that this God he talks about is his God. He doesn't want to disappoint his own God because he's doing what he thinks God would enjoy. And at the end of the day, who is he really disappointing if he's not training or working or writing? It's himself. But at the same time, it's his God. His God, as I said in the last video, is the perfect version of himself. And this is exactly the conclusion of my point. God is your higher self. God is the best version of yourself. If you desire to push forward and strive to unlock your full potential, you have to strive to please your better self. In that sense, you get the motivation of being under some sort of guidance, all while maintaining your values and knowing where you're going. This is why I think it's truly beautiful. So, to those who feel lost and with a lack of meaning, take out a piece of paper and write down whatever you want to be or whatever you think you could be. You have to believe enough in it to actually do it, and I know you can do it. So, for these final words, I'll say that existence precedes meaning, so we must construct it. However, one singular person cannot bear the responsibility of carrying all that meaning. This is why we have to access our better selves, or our inner gods, and put ourselves in its hands, but the most caring and best possible hands. Thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.